The leading particulars of this narration were all that Augustus communicated to me while we remained near the box. It was not until afterward that he entered fully into all the details. He was apprehensive of being missed, and I was wild with impatience to leave my detested place of confinement. We resolved to make our way at once near the hole in the bulkhead, near which I was to remain for the present while he went through to Reckentwire. To leave Tiger in the box was what neither of us could endure to think of, yet how to act otherwise was the question. He now seemed to be perfectly quiet, and we could not even distinguish the sound of his breathing upon applying our ears close to the box. I was convinced that he was dead, and determined to open the door. We found him lying at full length, apparently in a deep stupor, yet still alive. No time was to be lost, yet I could not bring myself to abandon an animal who had now been twice instrumental in saving my life, without some attempt at preserving him. We therefore dragged him along with us as well as we could, although with the greatest difficulty and fatigue. Augustus, during part of the time, being forced to clamber over the impediments in our way with the huge dog in his arms, a feat to which the feebleness of my frame rendered me totally inadequate. At length, we proceeded in reaching the hole. When Augustus got through, the Tiger was pushed in afterward. All was found to be safe, and we did not fail to return sincere thanks to God for our deliverance from the imminent danger we had escaped. For the present, it was agreed that I should remain near the opening, through which my companion could readily supply me with a part of his daily provision, and where I could have the advantage of breathing an atmosphere comparatively pure. In explanation of some portions of this narrative, wherein I have spoken of the stowage of the brig, and which may appear ambiguous to some of my readers who may have seen a proper or regular stowage, I must here state that the manner in which this most important duty has been performed on part of the Grampus, on board of the Grampus, was a most shameful piece of neglect on part of Captain Barnard, who was by no means as careful or as experienced a seaman as the hazardous nature of the service on which he was employed would seem necessarily to demand. A proper stowage cannot be accomplished in a careless manner, and most disastrous accidents, even within the limits of my own experience, have arisen from neglect or ignorance in this particular. Coasting vessels, in the frequent hurry and bustle attendant upon taking in their or discharging cargo, are the most liable to mishap from the want of a proper attention to stowage. The great point is to allow no possibility of the cargo or ballast shifting position, even in the most violent rollings of the vessel. With this end, great attention must be paid not only to the bulk taken in, but to the nature of the bulk. And whether there be a full or only partial cargo. In most kinds of freight, the stowage is accomplished by means of a screw. Thus, in a load of tobacco or flour, the hole is screwed so tightly in the hold that the barrels or hogsheads, upon discharging, are found to be completely flattened and take some time to regain their original shape. The screwing, however, is resorted to principally with a view of obtaining more hold in the screw in the hole, more room in the hold. For in a full load of any such commodities of flour or tobacco, there can be no danger of any shifting whatever, at least none of which inconvenience can result. There have been instances, indeed, where this method of screwing has resulted in the most lamentable consequences, arising from a cause altogether distinct from the danger attendant upon the shifting of cargo. A load of cotton, for example, tightly screwed, in which, while in certain conditions, has been known, through the expansion of in its bulk, to rend its vessel asunder at sea. There can be no doubt either that the same result would ensue in the case of tobacco while undergoing its usual course of fermentation, were it not for the interstices consequent upon the rotundity of the hogsheads. It is when a partial cargo was received that danger is chiefly to be apprehended from shifting, and that precautions should always be taken to guard against such misfortune. Only those who have encountered a violent gale of wind, or rather who've experienced the rolling of a vessel in sudden calm after the gale, can form an idea of the tremendous force of the vessel plunges, and of the consequent terrible impetus given to all loose articles of the vessel. It is then that the necessity of a cautious stowage where there is a partial cargo becomes obvious. When lying to, especially with the small head sail, a vessel which is not properly modeled in the bows is frequently thrown upon her beam heads. This occurring even every 15 or 20 minutes upon an average, yet without any serious consequences resulting, provided there be a proper stowage. If this, however, has not been strictly attended to, and the first the heavy lurches, the whole of the cargo tumbles over to the side of the vessel, which lies upon the water, and being thus prevented from regaining her equilibrium, as she would otherwise necessarily do, she is certain to fill off in a few seconds and go down. It is not too much to say that at least one half of the instances in which the vessels have foundered and heavy gales at sea may be attributed to a shifting of cargo or of ballast. When a partial cargo of any kind is taken on board, the hull, after being first stowed as compactly as may be, should be first covered with a layer of stout shifting boards, extending completely across the vessel. Upon these boards, strong temporary stanchions should be erected, reaching to the timbers above, and thus securing everything in its place. In cargoes consisting of grain or of any similar matter, additional precautions are requisite. A hull filled entirely with grain upon its leaving its port will be found not more than 3/4 full upon reaching its destination. This too, although the freight, when measured bushel by bushel by the consignee, will overrun by a vast deal, on account of the swelling of the grain, the quantity consigned. This result is occasioned by the settling during a voyage, and is more perceptible in proportion to the roughness of the weather experienced. If grain loosely thrown in the vessel, then is ever so well secured by shifting boards and stanchions, it will be liable to shift in a long passage so greatly as to bring about the most distressing calamities. To prevent these, every method should be then employed before leaving port to settle the cargo as much as possible, and for this there are many contrivances, among which may be mentioned the driving of wedges into the grain. Even after all this is done, and unusual pains taken to secure the shifting boards, no seaman who knows what he is about will feel altogether secure in a gale of violence, if any violence, with a cargo of grain on board, and at least of all with a partial cargo. Yet there are hundreds of our coasting vessels, and it is likely with many more from ports of Europe, which sail daily with partial cargoes, even the most dangerous species, and without any precaution whatever. The wonder is that no more accidents occur than do actually happen. A lamentable instance of this heedlessness occurred to my knowledge in the case of Captain Joel Rice of the schooner Firefly, which sailed from Richmond, Virginia to Madeira. With a cargo of corn in the year 1825. The captain had gone on many voyages without serious accident, although he was in the habit of paying no attention whatever to his stowage, more than was to secure it in an ordinary manner. He had never before sailed with a cargo of grain, and on this occasion he had the corn thrown on board loosely, when it did not much more than half fill the vessel. For the first portion of the voyage he met with nothing but more than light breezes, but when within a day's sail of Madeira, there came on a strong gale for the north by northeast, which forced him to lie to. He brought the schooner to a wed under the double-reefed foresail alone, when she rode as well as any vessel could be expected to do, and shipped not a drop of water. Toward night the gale somewhat abated, and she rolled with some more unsteadiness than before, but still did very well until a heavy lurch threw upon her beam ends to starboard. The corn was then heard to shift bodily, the force of the movement bursting upon open the main hatchway. The vessel went down like a shot. This happened within a hail of a small sloop from Madeira, which picked up one of the crew, the only person saved, and from which rode out the gale in perfect security, as indeed a jolly boat might have done under proper management. The stowage on board the Grampus was most clumsily done, if stowage could be called, which was little better than a promiscuous huddling together of oil casks and ship furniture. I've already spoken of the condition of articles in the hold. On the orlop deck, there was space enough for my body, as I've stated, between the oil casks and the upper deck. A space was left open around the main hatchway, and several other large spaces were left in the stowage. Near the hole cut through the bulkhead by Augustus, there was room enough for the entire cask. And in this space I found myself comfortably situated for the present. By the time my friend got safely into the berth, when we readjusted his handcuffs and the rope, it was broad daylight. We made a narrow escape, indeed, for scarcely had he arranged all matters when the mate came below with Dirk Peters and the cook. They talked for some time about the vessel and from the Cape Verds, and seemed to be excessively anxious for her appearance. At length, the cook came to the berth in which Augustus was lying, and seated himself in near the head. I could see and hear everything from my hiding place, for the piece cut out had not been put back. and it was a momentary expectation that the Negro would fall against the pea jacket, which was hung up to conceal the aperture, and in which case all would be discovered, and our lives would no doubt have been instantly sacrificed. Our good fortune prevailed, however, and all that he frequently touched as the vessel rolled, he never pressed against it sufficiently to bring about a discovery.